This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a guest who has won multiple Emmy Awards as a video journalist and a sports reporter. You've seen him on NFL Network and DirecTV. You've heard him on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio and on countless podcasts, including the Perception podcast. This man truly knows how to make fantasy football content fun. It's the one and only James Koh. Welcome in, my friend.
What's up, brother? It's been a long time since we've chatted, and I'm glad to be on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I've always enjoyed our interactions at FSGA events. Great conversations, and again, it's a privilege to have you on here. I respect you a ton and appreciate you coming on.
Oh yeah, hey man, anytime, absolutely. And again, yeah, I couldn't echo those sentiments anymore, man. It's always great to chat with you.
So take me back to when you first discovered sports. Like, were you as a kid just passionate sports fan? Where and when did that all begin?
Yeah, I've been a sports fan pretty much my entire life, and it's like funny. Like I don't know, I seem to root for hard luck losers, to be honest with you. Like when I was growing up in Houston, like the Astros never won, the Oilers never won, and it's like these teams were always on the precipice of being great, but they could just never break through. And I remember especially the Oilers with Warren Moon and all that. They were so close all the time, and they just couldn't break through. I remember that loss to the playoff loss to the Bills. It was the largest halftime deficit ever to be overcome by a backup quarterback too for the Bills.
Frank Reich, that's right.
Frank Reich, right in the heart as a young fan of football. But it's interesting, right? So despite all those heartbreaks and stuff, like I don't know. I love the game, and I just love athletic competition.
So, are you a Houston sports fan, since that's where you grew up this first handful of years of your life?
Yeah, I lived there till I was 10. Then I moved out to Southern California and been in LA pretty much my ever since then. But I was a pretty big Houston fan. I love the Rockets. It's funny. I don't have any like signed paraphernalia. I'm not really like that kind of guy. I don't really like collect a lot of things. I like to live kind of Spartan, but the only signed piece of paraphernalia I have is a Hakeem Olajuwon basketball. That's it.
Nice.
I loved Hakeem Olajuwon. He was like my idol growing up. I just liked his like cool, calm demeanor and the fact that he was so humble, but such a great player. And it was great. But yeah, no, look, I loved the Houston teams growing up, and then I think once I like got into my adulthood, and I'm talking like into like my 20s and stuff, it's like, all right, I don't know how many times these guys can like absolutely just stab me right in the gut before I'm just like, I haven't lived there in over 10. I'm like, all right, forget it. I like sports. I'm just gonna follow my fantasy teams. I'm giving up on the dream of Houston.
That's funny. Now, what did you think? How did you feel when you saw those Houston Oilers throwbacks out there this year?
Oh, they're the best. They're the
Pretty
best.
good.
Those powder blues.
Yeah.
Oh, they're the best. And just kind of sort of seeing like the Oilers logo and stuff on the side. No, it's awesome, man. Obviously, when they left Houston to go to Tennessee, that kind of sort of took a lot of my passion for them out of it. And I think growing up too, it's like I loved Warren Moon, and then they drafted Eddie George, and I was the biggest Eddie George fan. Then they go to Tennessee, and then Eddie George, plays a few seasons in Tennessee, but then retires. And then after that, I was kind of like, I guess I don't really care about the Tennessee Titans. I mean, who the hell are these guys?
I love it. I'm a Seattle guy, so Warren Moon, he went to UW.
Yeah.
We always rooted for Houston to do well back then, and obviously it was a fun team with the run and shoot, and they were a fun team to watch. So I
sure.
get that. So when did you decide that a career in broadcasting and sports journalism was something you wanted to do?
I talk about loving sports, and what's really weird is growing up in the LA area, I was actually almost a bigger fan of the broadcasters who brought you the game than the actual game itself. And don't get me wrong, I love the game, but I always had great admiration for the play-by-play guys, So we're talking about Chick Hearn, calling games for the Lakers, Vin Scully calling games for the Dodgers, and then in the 90s, I was a huge pro wrestling fan, right? So like Jim Ross was like somebody that I loved too, right? So I admired these guys, man. And ever since, I was a teenager, I would be obsessed with these guys and like thinking about like, what do these guys do that they're so great? And I always wanted to be, a sports broadcaster growing up because it really was interesting. I just found that the broadcasters were just as interesting as the athletes that they were calling games on. So yeah, I've been wanting to do it for a long time, and I've been blessed and fortunate to have those opportunities.
So when did you dive in? How were the early days of that career for you? Obviously, I know you did some radio work. There's something about a Korean cowboy. Like, talk to me about the grind and making your way towards the what we know of, most people know of like your NFL Network days.
Yeah, I know, right? People just think my career started at like NFL Network, and I was just like born into it. It's like, no, man, I had to go through some stuff, boy. Let me tell you. No, my first job out of school, I went to Berkeley, so I'm a big Cal Berkeley fan. Talking about these like hard pressed losers that I root for all the time, but yeah, no. So I went to Cal, and I just had a regular old 9 to 5 job. Like I sold insurance, then I sold like high tech service contracts and stuff like that, and I did that for like 2.5 years, I think. But for about 6 months there, I was moonlighting. I was also like going to a local radio station, sports talk radio station, and like helping out there. I was like getting coffee and like making copies and stuff, and just being like a total gopher at this sports talk radio station. But the DJ there was very nice and helped me put like work on my skills and like get my stuff together. I mean, I did sports broadcasting, like very like low level sports broadcasting stuff at Cal, but they don't really have like a program there set up, And I'm also an immigrant kid, man. So like, what I find is that most people who do this profession know somebody in sports, or like have those aspirations because they know somebody who's in media or has somebody who works in sport. When you're an immigrant kid, man, like the only people I knew, like, they own small businesses or they were lawyers or doctors. That's it, like, and so like, but the path of just like, having like family members or friends or like family friends or something like, kind of sort of set that path. It just doesn't exist when you're a first generation dude. Right. So when I first got out of school, it's a long way for me of saying I didn't really think I was going to be a sports broadcaster because I didn't think it was possible. And so it took me a while. It took me a couple years before I just kind of sort of said, you know what, man, let me just try and see if I could do it. And that was my sort of, I guess, first foray into it. I just wanted to see if I could do it. And really it was just a simple matter of like, okay, let's put a tape together. I'm going to send it all out. And if I get some callbacks, we'll see what's up. And if I don't get any callbacks, well, then screw it. I'll just make a bunch of money in the Bay Area and like, working, regular old 9 to 5 jobs, all good. Like I don't have any bad choices here. So yeah, this was back in 2000 and I think it was like 2004 is when I finally got a call back from a small radio station in Montana. And they said, would you like to do some call some high school, sports? And I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely. They're like, yeah, but you're also going to have to be our early morning country music DJ. And I told the guy, I'm like, listen, brother, I don't listen to country music, dude. He's like, yeah, well, can you, just do some internet research and fake it? And I'm like, yes, I can do that. So I packed up my Honda Accord and I drove from the Bay Area to Montana and then off we went.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So when did you discover fantasy sports? Like, when did you first start playing the game?
I have been playing fantasy sports since I want to say 95 or 96. It might be 96, I think, was the first time I started playing fantasy sports. And it was fantasy baseball. Then quickly it was fantasy basketball. And then it was fantasy football. I've been playing fantasy football since 1998. But yeah, I used to be obsessed with fantasy basketball and baseball and football, right? And it was like every year, I'd have three baseball teams, I'd have five basketball teams, I'd have, another three or four football teams. It was madness. It was crazy. But when you're young and you don't have a job, it's fine. It's great. Who cares? Let's play fantasy sports. Let's do it. But yeah, no, that's when I first started playing, and this was I'm not one of these like super OGs that have to play off the newspapers. Once it became available on the internet, that's when we started playing, man. And yeah, we were playing. I very proudly am a longtime Yahoo user. That was our first fantasy platform, was on Yahoo, and we played back in 1996 was or maybe it might have been 95, but I think it was 96 was the first time we started playing fantasy sports.
That's awesome. Yeah, I go back to just doing some of that paper drafting and then going straight into Yahoo. So I get you there. So do you remember whose content you consumed like in the beginning days of playing fantasy football? Do you remember some of those legends of the industry, or did you just kind of like go off your own knowledge
No. I used to consume the content a lot, I can't remember who the first guys were. I know Scott Pianowski was really early on. Do you guys? I don't know if you guys remember Closing Time. Do they? I don't think they still have Closing Time for Yahoo. Do they?
I don't think so.
I used to read that religious. I loved Closing Time. And it was like the entire staff worked on it. But Scott Pianowski, I remember, was one of the first early guys. But Andy Behrens, all those guys at Yahoo, man.
Brandon Funston.
Oh yeah, Brandon Funston, B. Funston, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just all those dudes. I just used to read them all, and they were great, I can't remember when that was though, because I remember they had some people before that didn't quite. I don't quite remember, but yeah, it was way back then, man. Way back then. And by the way, for me to have worked in this industry long enough to actually meet those guys and like work with a lot of those guys too. Oh man, it was. Yeah, it's cool. It definitely is cool. And by the way, they're good people, man. So it is really cool to have met some of these folks that I idolized growing up and consumed so much of their content growing up, and then to finally kind of sort of work with them alongside too. It makes it sound like I'm so young and they're so old, which is just, by the way, just totally not the case. Okay. Like, we're very similar in ages. I'm just saying, like, I got into the game a little bit later than these dudes, but yeah, I don't want to make it seem like they're ancient and I'm young, because that's definitely not the case. I'm old too.
You were doing other things. You were winning Emmy Awards and TV broadcasts and whatnot, right?
Right.
I love it. So when did you start creating fantasy football content?
So as you mentioned, I had I worked in radio for a couple of years. Then I went back to school and got my master's in journalism at USC. I lived my life in 2-year spurts, right? So 2 years of radio, 2 years at getting a master's, and then my first TV job was in Bakersfield, and I had 2 years there where I started off as like a part-time high school football cameraman. Like, I just would shoot video of these games. I didn't say any words, or I wasn't on camera or anything. I was getting paid $10 an hour, I think, and working like 10 hours a week or something. It was insane. But I quickly moved up, and then and then I was like doing, they hired me full time to do cameraman work for like news stories, right? News and sports stories. Then my boss is like, wait, hold up. So like, you have a master's degree and you're holding a camera not on camera. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, all right, hold on. He's like, show me your tape. And I was like, all right, here's my tape. He's like, what are you doing holding a camera, dude? So then I started shooting my own stuff and was doing news in Bakersfield. Then I was shooting my own stuff and doing news in San Diego. Then I moved up. These are all 2-year increments. And then I was in LA for a local Fox affiliate doing news and sports, finally. So this was like, 6 years into my career, 8 years since I first started my journey before I even got to do sports on TV. It's crazy, right? So yeah, I was the weekend sports anchor the first Asian American weekend sports anchor there at Fox 11 in Los Angeles. And yeah, man, we just had a blast, dude. It was great. And then I was there for a couple years. And then when I finally got an opportunity to meet with some folks over at NFL Network, yeah, it's a funny story there, but yeah, I got to meet some folks there, and they brought me on, and I told them about my love and passion for fantasy football, and they were like, all right, great, I think you might be a fit here, So I got an opportunity, and off we went.
How was that experience for you? The whole NFL Network experience.
It was mostly good. There were some bads, it's like that's probably true of a lot of different spots, but I just would like to tell people, man, like I really did enjoy, and I have friends that I am still friends with. So, and I consider them to be, lifelong friends. But and I don't want to make it seem like it's negative at all, because it really wasn't. I loved my time there. But there were certain personalities there that obviously, listen, when you get higher up in this business, the ego check is pretty significant, man. It is pretty significant, dude. So you run across some serious, you run across some serious egos. And NFL Network was really interesting because it at the time was very I don't know. It was like low level Game of Thrones, like it was kind of, there was a lot of inner office politicking and stuff. And I'm just like, not that dude. I'm not really into it. And I kind of sort of like shut myself out from that kind of stuff. And like, I think that ended up actually kind of sort of hurting me, I think, in the long run there. But hey, listen, I was there for 4.5 years, man. So I had a good time, and it was good. And obviously, despite some of the negatives, I would say it was overwhelmingly positive. And obviously, I had an opportunity to build out their podcast and kind of give my own flair to their their daily fantasy, the NFL Network show, Fantasy Football Live. And yeah, we had a really good time, and it was a lot of fun, but again, there are some drawbacks too.
Sure. Well, you certainly entertained the masses. It was so much fun. Your energy, just the way that you made the fantasy content on there fun. I mean, I appreciated it. I think everyone appreciated it who tuned in. So then you went to DirecTV. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, that was great, man. No complaints over at DirecTV. 5 years with them. And it was the 5 best years of my career. It was awesome. I had a really good time there. They really just were like, okay, gloves off, dude. Just go and do your thing. That was the one thing about NFL Network that was weird, was that they really wanted you to be pretty straight-laced. And unless you were a former athlete, then you can go crazy, right? But if you were like someone like me, they weren't sure what to do with somebody like me, right? Where I was like kind of sort of like, was towing the line between host and analyst. And it's really interesting. After I left, Good Morning Football was really picking up, right? And then so Good Morning Football was a space where they just said, okay, we're going to bring in 4 guys, or 4 people rather, and we're just going to let them do their own thing. So all of a sudden, even though I was a problem at NFL Network, they created a product that that basically, had 4 personalities that were like me, that were really riding the line between host and analyst, where they could do the regular broadcasty stuff, but then obviously brought their own personality into it. And by the way, it's like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm like breaking ground here. I mean, I was just doing stuff the same shit that you would see on ESPN, right? I'm doing the same stuff that you would see on Fox Sports 1. But they didn't have that built in to NFL Network until they created Good Morning Football. So it was kind of interesting. Obviously, Adam Rank was like, he was the real like NFL Network OG that really towed that line, And I'm so happy. By the way, I'm so happy for him, man. For him to finally be able to flex and do his thing, and for them to give him runway and finally give him a featured, prominent, voice on that network. He really is one of the big time voices there at NFL Network, and I'm so happy for him because he's been there forever and he's so deserving. Truly, truly, truly one of the most humble and nice guys in the industry, and I know he certainly helped me transition. When I first got to NFL Network, he was one of the early folks that kind of sort of welcomed me with open arms.
That's great. And you've done some work with Yahoo and the Athletic. You had
Yeah.
your Fantasy 5 podcast, which I thought was really cool, just the way that it was,
Thank
that
you.
short form. You've got your fake football show on YouTube, and
Yeah.
obviously that's all led to like reception perception. Tell me about the experience with Matt Harmon and reception perception.
Yeah, real quick, I want to go back with my time with DirecTV because I felt like I just shortchanged them right there because, like, honestly, it really was not to get too off topic, but they really were just like, hey, listen, man, we've seen some of the stuff that you do. Just go ahead and do that, and then do more of that. Like, go even further, right? Do whatever. They literally said, do whatever you want. If you do too much, we're gonna rein you in. I'm like, all right, cool, bet. And that is when we really started getting into the crazy, wild fantasy football skits that you would see on a weekly basis. And man, I thought we did a really good job with those. We obviously won a bunch of different awards, FSWA awards, in regards to our content there. And yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. It really, I'm not exaggerating, was the best time of my life, man. The complete creative freedom and control. And we just everything that you saw on there was just straight from the dome. There wasn't a huge team behind me or anything. It was like literally just me, like just having a couple beers with a couple friends and just like spitballing takes, and then just being like, what would be funny if we did this, and then we would do it. So it was a lot of fun, and I didn't want to shortchange my time over at DirecTV because honestly, it was the best 5 years of my life, man. It was
That's
great.
awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
How did you find that opportunity?
So actually, to be honest with you, I actually owe Marcus Grant a huge debt because they actually approached him and was like, "Hey, what do you think about doing this?" And he was locked into his thing at NFL Network, but he's like, "Hey, man, but you know who you need to talk to is my boy James Koh, because he's going to be a free agent soon." And I know, and he was, and he's looking for something. So then I walked in there, and Marcus Grant had recommended me for the job, and they were just kind of like, "Yeah, we didn't know if you did this kind of stuff because you're a host and not really an analyst." I'm like, "Yeah, a little host analysty, So I kind of showed him a little bit of stuff off my resume reel. They loved it. And yeah, man, we were off and running. So no, it was good. That's basically how I got that job, to be honest with you. I mean, it's funny. I had an agent at the time, and my agent didn't do jack shit. I'm like, dude, it's all about who you know and, personal interconnections and stuff like that, man. It's crazy.
So Marcus got the commission.
Yeah, I should have paid him, dude. No, but I definitely owe him a lifetime of gratitude for sure, because he could have easily just not said anything or not passed my name along, but no, he looked out for me, man. So he was great.
That's really cool. Yeah, now talk to me about reception perception.
Yeah, so when and again, Matt Harmon is a guy that I met at NFL Network and was a big fan of his work, and and even when he was a young guy just at NFL Network, that he was a seasonal employee, and when I remember the first off season that he was having, I'm like, hey man, this tool that you got right here, like invest in that, and like never give up the rights to that, because what you have is something that's pretty special, and I really encouraged him to really think about holding on to that product and selling that product, and then so he obviously got going with the fantasy. He did some stuff with the Washington Post, then he was with the fantasy footballers, and then after his time with the fantasy footballers, he wanted a bigger cut. And they were like, yeah, we can't afford that. So then he was like, you know what? Let me see if I could go out on my own and do it. And when he decided to do that, and he told me about it, I'm like, yo, how do I invest in this business? And at first he was like, I don't know. But the thing about Matt is that, first of all, we're buddies and we're friends. And but what he loves to do all of the football stuff, but he doesn't like to do any of like the back end, businessy stuff. And I'm like, hey man, let me handle that for you. All right, let me invest in your business. We'll be partners. You can give me a percentage of this business, and I will handle all the back end stuff for you, man. Like all the stuff that you don't see and all the grimy shit that you got to take care of in the back. Like, let me go and just take care of that stuff so you could focus on football. And he was like, you know what? It took him about a week, and he's like, I thought about it. Let's go do that. And so I feel like we've pushed each other, I think, in the right direction. I think it's been really good for him to bounce ideas off of me and for me to bounce ideas off of him. And it's been a really, really great partnership between me and Matt. And I'm happy to say that we are business partners. We're friends. We're pals. A lifelong friend here, certainly, in Matt. And I'm very blessed to be working alongside.
That's a great collaboration. I love it. And how about your experience with SiriusXM?
Yeah. Actually, I got this gig over last year when I was at FSGA. And I was on a DEI panel, and I made an offhand joke about like, somebody please hire me, because DirecTV was losing their sports coverage, and so I knew I was going to be a free agent. So SiriusXM ended up reaching out after the DEI panel. I was like, wait, are you serious? Are you looking for work? I'm like, yeah, bro, I'm looking for some work, dude. So yeah, they're like, hey, we thought about pairing you up with Adam Ronis, and you guys could do this, the fantasy football post game. It airs every Sunday night from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time, and basically we just kind of recap all the games from that Sunday. So yeah, no, it's been great. I really love the long form audio format. I do. And I think I don't know. I feel as if when I was at NFL Network, I might have been more known for the podcast than I was for the TV show. I was on the TV show, 3 times a week, right? But I was on, and we did the podcast 3 times a week. And I swear to God, man, like I definitely got more interaction online from the podcast than I ever did from the TV stuff, So I don't know, man. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly felt like there was a time when I was more known for the podcast than I was for the TV show.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I can see that. Obviously people that consume a podcast, they engage just a whole lot deeper into the content, into the person that's behind the mic, I think.
Right. And they get to know you too.
Yeah.
It's like you start swapping stories, you start telling jokes. It's a much longer format. You're not clipped off by these, if you work in TV, you have to understand you've got, 30 seconds, a minute, not more than a minute 30. Let me tell you, you don't got more than a minute 30 to get your point across. You it's very bop, bop, bop. You got to keep moving. Versus the podcast, you could spend 5 minutes talking about a player, and who cares? You could spend 5 minutes talking about your weekend if you wanted to. No one cares, It's like, let's just keep going. So, no, man. It, like I said, very blessed and very lucky to have the opportunities afforded to me at NFL Network, not just for the TV side, but also the audio side. And by the way, too, I also wrote for the website as well. I didn't have to. I just wanted to. Like, I like creating content in all different formats. And NFL Network was great because I was able to do TV, audio, and written, and it was great.
That's great. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing in the industry? I guess that kind of feeds into what you just said.
Yeah, I just think it's the creative aspect of everything. I really do enjoy just kind of sort of being able to flex creative muscles, whether it's talking, whether it's being on camera, whether it's writing. And I think I'm a little bit rare in that regards. There's not too many folks, I think, in the world, let alone this industry, that I think can capably do all 3 of those things. There's a lot of TV people who absolutely cannot do podcasting. And obviously there's a lot of podcasters and TV folks who can't write. But I do like to think that I can write a little bit. I can do some podcasting and TV, but it all boils down to creativity, and being able to kind of flex those creative muscles. And and honestly, I think that's what I enjoy the most of it all.
You do a great job with the short form stuff too. I mean, like your TikToks and your how does
Oh, thank
or
you.
what do you get out of that? Do you enjoy doing that stuff? Obviously, it's a it's a way to be creative for sure.
Yeah, it's a creative, and then it's like it's a little bit of I feel like it's like a game
It's a
almost when you're trying to
challenge.
create. It's a different
Yeah.
kind of challenge. The short form stuff is really interesting to me because it's like, all right, well, how do you get engagement and how do you get people to watch this whole thing? Because you get a lot of analytics and data back on like the length of time people are watching your videos. It's an interesting thought experiment, really, is what it comes down to, of just like, all right, well, how do I do this stuff in like the most engaging way possible, without like killing yourself in terms of time, because I don't want to spend too much time on it. I mean, it's a freaking 90-second video. I don't want to spend 2 hours on this thing. That don't make any sense, right? So yeah, just doing something quick, easy, fun, engaging, and just trying to sort of crack that code. And just it really is to me, it really is just a game to see like how can I up my views and like what's working, what's not working. And again, it kind of sort of gets my intellectual side and my creative side working together. And I think that's really what's a lot of fun with that.
I love it. I love it. What have you experienced when it comes to challenges? Like, what has your most difficult challenge been professionally?
Well, there's two, right? And these always come to mind. One is like just fantasy football is a weird place because the commenters generally suck. Have you ever been to like YouTube? Like the YouTube comment sections are awesome, except when you're talking about like you go to any you go to like any written content or like any kind of like movie reviews or something. Like the comment section, like I go to social media to go look at the comment section. Like forget about like the actual content, like I've already seen the content. Who cares about the content? I've already seen it 10 times. Like let me go dive into the comment section because the comment sections are funny as hell. Except when you get to fantasy football. Fantasy football comment sections are an absolute dumpster. Like it sucks. Like everyone, all the comments are exactly the same. This guy's not available in my league. I wish I could play in your league. You would get crushed in my league. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Does he even watch the games? Those are your 5 comments. Those are your 5. And it's just like, oh my God, guys, like where are the funny people? In the comment section? There's no funny people in the comment section when it comes to fantasy football. Like it sucks. Anyways, long way of me saying one of the challenges professionally is to like put content out there, and literally the only people that ever comment on your stuff is to tell you it sucks. Like that's a tough way to live. That is a tough way to live. And it really is interesting to me when like I see like young fantasy football content creators struggle with this from like a mental health perspective, because everyone goes through it. Everyone, listen to me now. Everyone goes through that when you first start out in this particular industry. If you're doing fantasy football, like the first couple years, you're like, Jesus Christ, like, why am I doing this? Like, I put this out there and like literally 90% of the comments are negative. They suck. Okay. But you just keep on keeping on because like, you're like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe I'm getting a paycheck to talk about fantasy football. All right, fine. So that's one. I think that's probably one of the things that you kind of have to get over. And obviously, I've been in this business long enough. I mean, Jesus Christ, I've been doing fantasy football now for 10 years. If you don't have a thick skin after that, like, what are you still doing in this business? And so, yeah, I would say that part of it is always hard. And the fact that I am an Asian American in particular too, like this is beyond fantasy football, but just in terms of like just being an online person at all and being on TV, getting like I always get one racist comment a year. That always sucks, man. That part you never get desensitized to, by the way.
Yeah.
But again, 15 years I did TV. Every year I would get at least one comment about being Asian, whatever. Anyway, so okay, we put that under we brush that under the rug. The second one I would say in terms of challenges, man, I would say imposter syndrome. I think that's a big thing for me, It's like there seems like when you consume as much content as you should when you're a content creator, it's all about creating content but also consuming content, or as I like to say, you consume and then you shit content. But you take in all this content, and man, you just think like, wow, there's some really smart MFers out there, man. There are some really good folks out there. And so how do you not try to be one of those people? And how do you just try to end up just being yourself? So I really think that if you consume my content, it's very unique to me. I don't think there's a lot of different people talking about fantasy football in exactly the way that I do, because I try to keep it kind of sort of light, and I do obviously use a lot of numbers and analytics and stuff like that, but I just feel like analytics obviously has its place, and it's certainly taken over football and fantasy football in particular, but there's also people who just don't consume their information that way, and it just goes right over their heads, and it's not fun for them, right? So I really try to keep it light and fun, and I think for me, I think that's really I've done well doing that. But listen, it's really hard when you feel like 90% of the fantasy football landscape is doing it a certain way, and you're trying to do it your own way, and then you feel like, man, these guys are so smart, bro. Like, what the hell am I doing? I'm an idiot. Like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And so, like, I feel like imposter syndrome definitely takes hold a lot. And so, yeah, the insecurities of the business, that's always prevalent. That's always like that I feel like in my mind, that's like the insecurity monster is always just lurking in the background. It's like a demon just kind of waiting in the shadows, and anytime you suffer a career setback, it's just there, man. It is ready to pounce. It is on your ass at all times. So it's a really interesting, it's such an interesting psychological battle that happens when you get to a certain point. It's like, do I deserve to be here? And then it's like when you lose that spot, you're like, oh my God, am I ever going to get back? And I would say, especially this year in particular, has been tough for me. It really has. It's the first time in 15 years, man, that I haven't been doing TV. So it has been really, really difficult in that regard. So yeah, that I would say those two things, the internet trolls and just your interpersonal demons, are probably the hardest thing about this business, man.
That's good answers. Obviously, a lot to dive into that on that. As for the trolls, I mean, I think that the people are the people that lose. They're looking for someone to blame, and the people that are winning, they're out celebrating, taking credit for their success.
Yeah, for sure, 100%, absolutely. Take those dubs, man. It's all good. I'm not looking for any kind of credit back. It's all good. It's your fantasy team. It's all good. But yeah, no, it's tough, man. Sometimes the negative comments, for sure.
For sure. But I mean, and with the imposter syndrome, I think, obviously there's a lot of people that deal with that, on a daily basis. What's your advice for people that struggle with that?
My only advice is the stuff that I do, which is basically like, the only thing you could do is put your head down and work. If you just put your head down and just focus on the next task, I got to do this, then I got to do this, then I got to do this, then I got to, it's like you end up being too busy to like dive into the whole, negative feedback loop. Right. So I would just say, I mean, I don't know, maybe it sounds kind of corny, but I think just putting your head down and just taking it, one task at a time, I think probably is the best method, and then I would say too, I think what's really helped me along in my career is I really believe that in manifesting, your thoughts, right? So you have to, even if you don't quite believe it, right, to just say, I want to do X, right? and saying it out loud and saying it to a person. I think there's some power in that. And what I mean by that is I don't mean like just like some kind of like, otherworldly spiritual force like lifting you up. That's not really what I mean. But manifesting for me is if you tell somebody your dreams and your hopes, your mind, your subconscious mind does a lot of work in the background, man. And it's like solving problems. So your subconscious mind is solving all these problems in the background, right? So what does that mean? It's like, all right, well, what do I got to do? How do I get there? All these different things about, just trying to solve different problems of what it is that you want to accomplish, right? That's really what it is for me. It's just, okay, it's like if I say, I want to be a sports broadcaster on ESPN one day. Well, there's a lot of problems with trying to get there. There's a lot of roadblocks. And I just feel like my subconscious mind is working in the background trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we get past these roadblocks? So I do think that is something that has helped me a lot in my career.
Yeah, that's great advice, and it couldn't be more true. Now, one thing you're passionate about is diversity. I know that you did you were on a panel at the FSGA conference talking about that diversity of voices within the space. Talk to me about that a little bit when it comes to where your passion comes from for that.
So I'm not 100% sure, but I have to be one of the earliest Asian American voices in fantasy football. And it's a little bit funny, right? Because like fantasy football is all about numbers. So what the hell does, race or gender matter? Which is for the most part true. I think that's mostly true. But there are certainly different, I think like, perspectives that I would have that somebody else might not have. Right. And it's a very individual thing, but I do take a lot of pride in the fact that I was one of the most visible Asian American faces and voices on NFL Network for a long time. And I've had people say to me like, hey man, it's great seeing you on TV and being a visible presence on NFL Network. And again, I go back to my own background, which is when I was growing up, man, there were not too many folks who look like me on TV. Honestly, that plays a big part into me having felt at the time. I remember I started this by saying, like, I didn't think that a job in sports is possible. That's kind of sort of also plays into it, Like, I didn't see a lot of folks like me on TV talking about sports. So, maybe even if that's something that I wanted to do, which it was, I'm out here talking about like, I love these sports broadcasters. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. Like, wow, what a weird situation to be in to say, I want to be this. I really admire it. I love it, but I feel like I can't do it. That seems so, that's defeatist. It sucks. But like part of that plays into that is you don't see a lot of people like yourself doing what you do. You kind of sort of are a little thinking like maybe it's not that possible, So I do think that, me being a visible person, in the fantasy football space, maybe it does inspire some young Asian American person to be like, yo, you know what this guy's doing? I could do it too, So I think that part of it is really important to me. And again, I also said like, I'm not young, like I'm a little bit older than maybe some folks might realize, but the older I get, and I got 2 kids too, like that stuff is more and more important to me the further and further along I get in my career. I just want to say too, like I said, at the end of the day, I always believe like being good is being good, but when you kind of sort of say like, if you have to be a person of color and then be better than your competitors, like that kind of sucks, So I think that's part of the thing of just kind of like, all right, let's just challenge some of the norms and like look at some of the like just at least challenge your evaluation process, that's all. I'm not saying I deserve to be here because of race or something like that. That's just stupid, but I would say like, can we at least challenge our evaluation process of somebody's talent, So because I think there is some of that too. It's like people do gravitate towards their own, man. It's all good. I get it. It's cool. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna lie and tell you like I don't root for Asian Americans in sports. Of course I do, man. I'm like, yo, let's go. But so you're gonna gravitate towards your own just a little bit, but yeah, man, like, you do want to be able to challenge some of your priors, and I think that's healthy. I think that's just healthy for human life in general, bro. Like, forget about fantasy football for a second or forget about sports. That's just healthy for you as a person, to challenge some of your priors and every now and again reevaluate your value system and see where you're at, man. That's all.
That's good. No, it's obviously it's an important thing. We want to see more voices and from different perspectives. That's always a positive. Now, when it comes to the actual, playing the game of fantasy football, do you have a like a primary home league that you have?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in a league for, I want to say 20 years now,
Nice.
At least 15. At least 15 years. But yeah, probably pushing 20 years now. It's a primary league of mine. It's the only league that I truly, honestly, passionately care about. And right now I'm like outside the playoffs and it's like life sucks, dude. I just posted, I'm in a 14-team league, bro. This is a 14-team league. Okay, it's auction budget, fab, all that kind of stuff, man. $1,000 buy-in, man. Like you gotta come correct, okay? And let me just say, so this past week, 14-team league, okay? I dropped a 140 spot and I lost. Yo. Let me tell you something, dog. Like that, it stings. So I've got one loss like that. 2 weeks ago, I lost by a 1 meager yard. I lost the matchup by 1 yard. Oh my God, unbelievable! And right now, I'm on the outside looking in regards to that league in terms of the playoffs. But yeah, so no, listen, no one wants to know about my fantasy team. It's all good. I'm just saying there's passion there. Okay, I've been in this league a long time. Big buy-in. There's a lot of pride on the line in this league, and so yeah, man, that's the one league that I absolutely want to win every single year.
I love it. So with that, obviously big buy-in. Do you guys do anything to mitigate any of the luck, like median scoring or anything like that? Or just you just play play it as it is?
Okay, so Kevin, they introduced to vote this offseason median scoring. I am diametrically opposed to median scoring. Like I will freaking fight tooth and nail to not have median scoring. And let me explain why. The life and death nature of every single week in fantasy football is what makes fantasy football great. If you lose a heartbreaker like I just did, where I score the second most points in my league and I lose, that sucks so bad. But that passion, that emotion, you're not going to get that from median scoring, brother. Like, it just doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's funny, like this whole like mitigating the luck thing. So we're going to take kickers out of it. It's like, come on, man. All right, if we're going to start I mean, like, well, why are we even playing fantasy football? Like if you could predict all of these things, like that's the unpredictable nature, the up and down nature of that's what makes it so fun. That's why people don't play fantasy baseball, where you got to sit through 160 some odd games in roto scoring, and it's like you're already out of it by halfway through the season. It's the week by week nature and the life and death nature of every single week that drives the passion for fantasy football. So I'm all about leagues with kickers. Bring back the kickers. Okay, get rid of median scoring. All right, and let's just ride. Be a grown-up. Okay, get some stones, baby. Put your pants on. Let's go play fantasy football.
I love it. No, that's true. I mean, the fantasy experience is why we all love the game and fall into it. And you're making some great points about what is truly special about fantasy. It's about something that drives you crazy one week and lifts you to the top the next week, and you get to engage with friends and family and whoever you're playing with and talk that trash and experience that defeat and experience the joy of winning. I I like where you're coming from on that.
It's
good.
the bad beats in fantasy football. You can't let me put to you like this. You can't have good without evil, right? You can't have light without dark, okay? You can't have the highest of highs without the lowest of lows, all right? If we start doing all this, like, just we're mitigating the luck factor and all that stuff, and we just start bringing everything towards the middle, right? Like, that's not fun. That is not fun. I mean, there are a very small sect of people who literally only have fun if they win. And brother, I'm here to tell you, that's not a great way to live. Okay. I don't want to live that way. All right. Like, I want to have fun. Like, let me enjoy the experience of it all, man. Like the aches and, pains of fantasy football. Like, oh my God. That's why when you win that championship, baby, it tastes so sweet. It tastes so sweet because you remember those 1-yard losses. You remember those weeks where you scored the second highest amount of points and lost, like, that's what makes those championships, just feel so amazing.
Well said. I couldn't be said any better. I love that passion, and again, I think that's what this game's all about. So I love it. Tell me about. Let's change gears a little bit. Tell me about your journey into boxing. What was that experience like for you? The training. What did you learn the most about yourself from that experience? Did you have any prior experience with boxing or martial arts? Tell me about that.
It's so interesting too, because it's just like it's a huge part of my life, and I almost never like post about it. And people, if you follow me, that I got into my first amateur fight last year, right? So in February, I was in my first amateur fight. And again, at the age of 42, I'm doing my first amateur fight. People are like, "What are you doing, guy? Like, protect yourself, protect your body." Look, I've been doing boxing for about 8 years now. About 8 years now, and it's a huge passion of mine. I actually teach and coach boxing now. That's how, and I just love working with young people and beginners and stuff, and trying to get their technique down right. I've been a fan of combat sports for a long time, and again, I just started training in it for the past 8 years. But I've been following, and actually, I covered boxing and MMA for a while. When I was a journalist both in San Diego and in LA. So there was a 4-year stretch there where I was doing a lot of MMA and boxing coverage. And listen, before I was ever known for fantasy football at all, I was way more well known in the MMA space. I had interviews, long form interviews with Dana White, John Jones, Chuck Liddell, Anderson Silva. I mean, you name the big guys that were in the sport. BJ Penn, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, like anyone and everyone who was a name in the sport at that time, I did long sit-down interviews with. And I was way more well known for that than anything I did for fantasy football at the time. So yeah, I've covered the sport. I've loved combat sports. I love the human chess of it all. Like, if I do this, what's the counter move? And if I do the counter move, what's the counter to the counter? Right. So I love it all, man. And yeah, I'm very passionate about it. I don't do MMA, but obviously I love the sport of MMA, just watching and covering it. But yeah, I love the boxing aspect of it all, man. I tried Muay Thai for about 3 minutes. I got a leg kick and I'm like, nope, I am out. I would rather get punched in the face. I'd rather get my nose broken than feel the pain of somebody's shin landing into my shin. So I'm good. I got one low leg kick and I'm like, nope, this is not the sport for me. No, thank you. So I've been doing boxing for a while, and like I said, I am extremely passionate about the sport, and yeah, I've been enjoying it.
What did you learn most about that experience of the training leading up to the event?
So there's a lot of self-discipline involved. I was at my heaviest, I was at 180, right? So this is at the end, near the end of the football season, last year. So this is the 2022 football season, probably like January 1. You do the Thanksgiving, you do the Christmas, you've got the drinks going and the turkeys and the hams and the pies going. I got a huge sweet tooth. And so I'm up to about 180 now. And then so from there, about January 1 to my fight in late February, February 25th was the fight. I went from 180 to 154, right? So I had to cut down to make a certain weight class. And at 154, I had to make that weight. And so, yeah, I just dropped like, whatever, 25, 26 pounds it was, right? So 26 pounds in that, what is it? I don't know, like six week period is when
Wow.
I dropped about 26 pounds, right? So just the discipline, I think, in regards to that. Obviously diet is a big part of it. Diet's probably like 90% of it, honestly, is losing the weight. Watching the calories, eating right, high protein diets and stuff like that, man. Like trying to understand some of the science behind the nutrition too. So there was a lot of that going on. So the discipline involved in that. And then for the fight itself, it's just kind of sort of, okay, fighting human instinct to not be scared to get hit, right? So I'm at the point now where I'm just not scared of getting hit. Like if you hit me, it's fine. I'm sort of still looking for my openings, and so, kind of sort of turning that switch on in my brain. Dude, Kevin, you want to know why I ended up doing this, man? Like, I'm a very competitive person, and at some point, you cannot do super explosive sports, right? I was 35 years old and out of shape, and I realized, like, okay, I can't really play basketball the way that I want to play basketball anymore, right? And so to be able to play basketball at a certain level, not that I was any good, but to play it at a certain level, and then just to not be able to get there, and that not only that, not only to not get to that level, but also um, basically be worried about injury all the time. Um, it's just a buzzkill, man. And like, so then at some point you just start, if you are craving that athletic edge, what do? You can't, like I said, you really can't play a lot of like explosive athletic sports when you get to a certain age. So the great thing about boxing is, one, weight classes, and two, age requirements, right? So you end up fighting guys your age at your weight. And so it becomes a really fair competitive endeavor. And like that's the part of it that I craved, man. Like I needed that in my life. And I was becoming a very like depressed individual because I didn't have that competition, that drive, that fire in my life. You can only get so much of that from your professional competition, like trying to move
Yeah.
up the ranks and all that. You need some of that at least I do. I need some of that physicality, and boxing gave that to me.
That's awesome. I love it. All right, let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll throw out some questions. You just give me the first response that comes to mind. What are your favorite sports teams right now?
Favorite sports teams right now. Oh golly, I don't know. I've been in this business so long, man, that you start losing fandom for teams and just start rooting for players. So right now, I'm really rooting for Damian Lillard, to go and win a championship there with the Bucks. I think he's long overdue.
That's good. Do you have a favorite all-time sports moment as a fan?
Favorite all-time sports moment. The one that's the most memorable to me is the Kirk Gibson home run. I believe that was 1988, and I was just a little young lad, 8 years old, and watching that moment was the first time I actually got chills watching sports.
This isn't rapid fire. Have you spoken to Jorge Martin about his experience with the Dodgers at all? Have you connected with him at all?
I've talked to him last year at FSGA. He's a great
Okay.
guy. And yeah, no, he's great. You know, like I said, when I was in LA, I actually covered the Dodgers as part of my regular sports reporter routine. And so, you know, I got to meet a lot of Dodger greats and stuff like that. I got to meet Vince Scully, which was like, oh my God, I think I nearly passed out meeting the great Vince Scully. So yeah, no, it's been great
I asked because he's got some incredible stories about
for
that
sure,
Kirk Gibson home
for
run.
sure.
I recommend that you guys connect on that because we took a drive to the FSGA, no, to
Uh huh.
the Fantasy Football Expo, and got
Yeah,
to hear some great stories, and
love it,
it's amazing. So he's awesome to connect with, especially when you're talking Dodgers.
love
So
it.
now you're a Cal Berkeley alum. What were your
Yeah.
first impressions of Marshawn Lynch?
I loved Marshawn Lynch. He was actually the backup behind J.J. Arrington at the time, and I don't know if people remember this, but J.J. Arrington actually ran. He ran for 2,000 yards, man. And again, I'm so bitter about this, but my dude ran for 10,000 or 2,000 yards in a season. I think Cal Berkeley was number 4 in the nation at the time, and he got zero Heisman consideration. I was so like I remember being at school at the time and just being so pissed about that. But yeah, Marshawn Lynch was a backup behind J.J. Arrington, and it was even apparent then. And again, Arrington had 2,000 freaking yards, and even then, I was like, "Yo, this guy Marshawn Lynch is better than J.J. Arrington."
I love it.
And he was so good, man, so powerful. He's honestly, he's my favorite athlete of all time.
I like
Maybe
that
not.
answer.
He's my favorite football player of all time. Favorite football player of all time because man, he was just so real, and just so honest, man. And like those runs, boy, I loved those runs. The Beastquake run, probably other than the Kirk Gibson home run, probably the most memorable moment that I can ever that I can remember in sports.
Well, you're speaking my language as a Seahawks fan. So, I mean, yeah, he just put 100% in. So I love it. When did you know that Aaron Rodgers was special?
I didn't know a lot about Aaron Rodgers. He was a JUCO transfer from Butte College, right, community college, and I didn't really know a lot about him. He had this really interesting throwing style where he kept the ball really high. But yeah, Tedford obviously worked really well with him, developed him, and it was pretty apparent. I would just say from the jump, honestly. Look, if you watch enough college football when you see an NFL caliber quarterback play it for your team, you're like, holy hell, this is weird to see, you know? And because look, Cal's a power conference school, and we've had our moments, but we're certainly not historically a great football school, you know? So it's not like we had like these like 5-star quarterback recruits like coming through at all times, you know. So and by the way, before Aaron Rodgers, I mean we would get by at the quarterback spot. But man, it was just so obvious and apparent his talent coming through from the jump. I mean, just literally game one, you're like, yeah, this guy can play.
Such a natural. What's your favorite skit or character that you did on NFL Network or DirecTV?
On DirecTV, my favorite character is still Jim Comer. You know, it's a play off of Mad Money's Jim Cramer. I really love that character, and I put my all into it. And it's funny, I don't think that's the character that I think resonated the most, though. I had a lot of different skits that I thought were really funny too. Like we did like a Sleeper Hunters, which is a play off of like Ghost Hunters, right? Like I thought that one was extremely funny. And yeah, we did a bunch of different ones, man, that did really well. I think the most popular one though that we ever did was it was called Die Yards, and it was a playoff of Die Hard. And I think that's the one that probably I think got the most views. I forgot how many views we got on that one, but certainly it was one of the most shared views or videos that we ever did.
Good stuff. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of fantasy sports?
You know, we talked about boxing. I do a lot of boxing, and then just, you know, I really, really try to spend a lot of time with my family. You know, like this business is a cruel mistress, and it absolutely consumes a lot of your not just physical time but mental time. You know, like I spend a lot of time thinking about my work and thinking about my job and thinking about my profession, if you can't tell. And and a lot of times that means that I'm not present with my family. So I try to, when I'm not working, like take a step back and really like put my phone down. Don't look at Twitter. Don't look at like Adam Schefter tweets. Okay. And try to focus in on my family and really try to live in that moment.
That's good. Priorities, always important.
Yeah.
What's the last TV show that you binged?
Last TV show that I binged, Handmaid's Tale's probably up there. Yeah, I think that's probably the last TV show that I binged. Although I gotta say, I'll fully admit, I binge a lot of anime too. So I think I probably watched like Demon Slayer a bunch and Attack on Titan like in an insane amount of times.
Do you have an all-time favorite show, TV show?
Yeah. Oh, no question. Sopranos. Oh my God. Sopranos, in my opinion, is the greatest show to ever have existed. And there's a lot of people going to say stuff like The Wire or like Breaking Bad. And those are both, by the way, both great shows. Not taking anything away from those shows. I loved Breaking Bad. But honestly, the last season of Breaking Bad was a tough watch, mostly because you weren't rooting for the character anymore. You weren't rooting for Walter White. Walter White was a complete POS. And you're like, God, I hope he dies. So it's like, I don't know. I kind of sort of hate watched that last episode wanting Walter White to die. It's like, all right. And The Sopranos, I thought just from season 1 to season 7 was just consistently just so good, man. They certainly had some, story arcs that I thought could have, probably been left in the editing, floor, but that's okay. Overall, I thought it was the best show to ever grace the screen, man. It's great. And by the way, if you go back and watch it now, it still holds up too. It's a really great watch.
I love it. Do you have an all-time favorite movie?
All-time favorite movie? It's going to sound like I love like gangster stuff, but like I loved Godfather 1. Again, everyone talks to me about Godfather 2 being better, and I get it. There's certainly some valid points, but I go back to like rooting interest, okay? Like nobody's rooting for freaking Michael Corleone at the end of Godfather 2, okay? Michael Corleone at the end of Godfather 2 is, again, complete whack job. Like, screw this guy, you're like, God, I hope he gets whacked. You know what I'm saying? And Godfather 1, the whole the whole story of coming up and like achieving I thought was a much more pleasant watch, so that you're rooting for these characters than you are in the second film. And listen, the second film's obviously great too. I'm just, if we're nitpicking here, I would prefer 1 versus 2.
Good point. Do you have a favorite band or musician?
It's hard. Like right now, I listen to a stupid, embarrassing amount of Post Malone. So, I am, I very embarrassingly listen to a lot of that. The 2 music acts that I listen to right now. This is very embarrassing. I love Post Malone. Maybe that's not as embarrassing, but dude, I don't know what it is about Blackpink, man, but I'm like, I'm vibing with Blackpink too, which is just so random and weird. Okay, so now that's modern. I grew up listening to a lot of like hip hop growing up. I'm sure you could tell, but like, yeah, like I thought like Dr. Dre's 2001 album was like my soundtrack to my young adult life, man. So anytime Still Dre comes on, that's an auto, you're turning this up to max volume, uncomfortable levels of volume when Dr. Dre's Still Dre pops up on the playlist, man. So that's probably like I don't know if I have an all-time favorite band that I love, but certainly that's my all-time favorite song.
Yeah, it's a legendary album for sure.
Yeah.
What's your favorite place to go on vacation?
We've been to Hawaii a lot, but I always, I think about in my youth, I was in my 20s, in my mid-20s, and I went to Italy, and I visited Rome and Cinque Terre and stuff like that, and I thought that was a mind-altering, life-altering experience for me. I was out there for 2 weeks, and I just felt like if you who I don't know who said this. It might have been Mark Twain, man, but somebody said to fight ignorance, you got to travel the world, and I truly believe in that, So, yeah, it was a mind altering, mind bending experience, man. It was great. I had a lot of fun and just really put in perspective like the human existence. When you go to a place like Italy and you're like, sipping coffee in a freaking, square that's 2,000 years old, it really puts in perspective, how minuscule your own lifespan is.
For sure. I love that's a great answer. What's one thing you're truly grateful for at this time?
I just think my health and my family, man, I'm a healthy dude. And certainly I've got a great family structure here too that, my immediate family's great, like my wife and my kids and stuff like that. So yeah, probably those are the things that I'm most thankful for. And again, I'm also thankful for my business partner, Matt Harmon, for agreeing and allowing me to kind of sort of be part of his journey as well. I've had a really, really good time, working with him and kind of helping his business grow. It's been really gratifying to kind of see the growth and stuff that we've had over at Reception Perception.
I love it. It's great. Now, once upon a time, you were an aspiring content creator of some sort. I mean, obviously, you kind of took a different path when it comes to TV and all that. But there's a lot of people out there that want to become relevant in this industry. Do you have any advice for people that want to create more content and get involved in the fantasy sports industry?
Man, I could honestly, dude, I could probably sit here for hours and talk about this because the journey has been so important for me. But obviously, my come up is really different than the way people are coming up now. I mean, Kevin, I had to send like physical DVDs to people to watch and just hope that they watched it. I didn't know if they watched it. I had no clue. Right? Like you send a YouTube link now, you get the analytics back in like 10 minutes. Okay. It's like, oh, somebody watched it. All right, cool. It's like back then you had to mail out a goddamn DVD to people and hope that people watched it, man. So my come up was significantly different, but I think some of the common themes though, and common takeaways is always, you just got to grind it out, man. I think Seth Rogen said this in regards to his career. You just got to keep going and do just enough to kind of like live, and figure out ways to kind of like get by, but keep doing the thing that you're passionate about. And then at some point it just works because you just end up like lasting longer than everybody else. He brought up a great point about Sir Ian McKellen. He didn't like get famous till his freaking 70s, dude. You know what I mean? So, no one knew about freaking Sir Ian McKellen until he was old as hell. But he just kept sticking it out, just kept going, doing movies, and all of a sudden he's freaking Magneto. All right, like here we are, we're good, dude. All of a sudden he's freaking Gandalf, and like, all right, we're off and running. Like who's the old ass dude that played Gandalf? You're like, all right, cool, we're good, we're gonna keep going. Yeah, I would just say you got to just keep putting your head down and keep working. I think that's like from a high level. Like more like actionable advice is like create a 5 year, 1 year, and like 1 month plan, and just like have a little checklist of things that you want to get done. And you just got to keep plugging away a little bit every single day. In today's world, man, there's absolutely no reason if you're a young person trying to come up in this business that you're not creating a little piece of content every single day, and I end every Reception Perception podcast by saying it's never too late to chase your dreams. And I truly believe that, it really is never too late. If you want to do what you're doing, you're 35 and you feel like, my time has passed. That's just bullshit. It's like if you're, and it's like funny too. Cause like I meet some people who are like 25 and like, yeah, maybe it's too late. I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, don't feel like this at 25. My God, like just keep plugging away. Do what you got to do to survive and just keep plugging away. At some point you'll break through. And I do think that it's really important to kind of sort of stay true to yourself too, man. Like I said, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, and honestly, you'll find your group and your niche if you just do it your way. If you start doing it the way other people are doing it, I don't know. Certainly learn lessons from those people, but try to find a way to stay true to yourself as well. So I don't know. I would say those pillars are probably a good starting point.
It's great advice. Absolutely. Well, James, is there anything we haven't covered that you would like to share before we close things out?
No, man, we covered a lot. I talked a lot, dude. I'm a little long-winded and I feel bad. So anyone who stuck it out this long, dude, I appreciate y'all. Holy hell.
I love it. No, it was awesome. It was great conversation. I appreciate it. Where can listeners and viewers find you?
At James Koh everywhere. Okay, so we're talking Twitter, X, Instagram, at James YouTube, TikTok. It's all the same. It's all the same screen name and handle. It's at James Koh. Yeah, I would love. I'm actually trying to build out my TikTok a little bit. So if y'all want to follow me there, that'd be cool. If you don't do TikTok, it's all good. Twitter, X, and Instagram are places that you could find my content too. And of course, obviously go to the website, man, receptionperception.com. I write a weekly column or two. Sometimes I get off my lazy ass and I write 2 columns, but yeah, you'll find a sleeper column on receptionperception.com each and every week.
Well, there he is, James Koh. Appreciate you coming on, my man. Appreciate you joining me, and we wish you all the best moving forward.
All right, man. Hey, thanks for having me on anytime.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.